Ellie, welcome back to Women's Circle. It's been 3 months.
Thank you, Carlie. I've been really looking forward to us having a chat. And I remember when we did the last interview thinking, what could I possibly have to share? All I'm going to be able to share is that I've had the girls.
Yeah.
But over the last few months, so much has been popping up that I think, it's good for us to do a bit of a debrief on the other side.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, let's go back because at the end of our last podcast, you were about to give birth.
Mm.
So we want to catch up of everything. So go for it.
Okay, and if you can see me rocking to my left, it's because baby Amelia is about to fall asleep again. So I've got the girls here with me. So yeah, I had the girls the day after we recorded that podcast. Going back to it, and I'm happy for you to lead the conversation as well because I may jump around a bit. The girls arrived 4 minutes apart. I can remember being on the table and the positioning of the girls. Sophia was up really high and Amelia was down below. So what they did is they had me angled, and I remember my head was lower than my legs. If you can kind of picture that, I was kind of like on an angle. There goes Sophia. And I didn't get to see them. So, when babies are delivered, they usually hold them up. Even with a Caesar, they drop the curtain. Now, I remember Amelia coming out, and the only way I got to see both of the girls, the anaesthetist nurse was kind enough to take photos. I remember being very anxious in that moment, thinking, we didn't know how they were going to come out, what condition they were going to come out in. And so I saw the girls first by looking at my husband's phone, seeing photos. When Sophia came out, they had to do a lot of manipulation in my upper tummy, and that consequently left me in a lot of pain in the following weeks. But she came out, she didn't cry straight away, and I was having a meltdown because we want to hear that first cry.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been told that Amelia was the one that was likely to need breathing assistance, not Sophia. So she eventually cried, and I remember one of the midwives coming up to me because they took the babies from me into there's saloon doors to a warmer room. If I read the reports, it says they were both resuscitated from birth, but they both went on to CPAP. And the midwife, Chris, she came up to me and she said, Eleanor, I just had to get out of that room. She said, it's like there were more people than there were at a Christmas sale. And so for me, it's a lovely thought to think when the girls arrived, I obviously didn't get to touch them straight away or see them, but they were surrounded by teams of absolute brilliance looking after them. 40 minutes later, after being in recovery, they took me around to the NICU, and the girls were in preterm med in isolates, and I got to see them for the first time and touch them.
I like Ellie.
Yeah, it was very surreal, very surreal. Um, the girls then spent about 4 days on CPAP and moved within the first week. I remember going in on the first, like their first week of being alive. They'd been moved into, there's different stages obviously in the NICU, but they'd gone from preterm med to the room, which is to transition to the special care nursery. And they were taken back into isolates because they needed a little bit more of the blue light disco, as I called it. But that day we had a chat with the neonatologist, and that's when he said to me, this is the plan we foresee. The girls are off of CPAP. Soon they'll be off. They had an inline with TPN going through to give them extra nutrients, being fed through nasal gastric tubes as well. And at that point, they were only having like 3 meals a feed. And said, today we have a Catalyst team here from ABC. Would you like to share your story with them? So
Wow.
we've been very big on not sharing.
Already.
Yeah, we've been very big on not sharing images of the children.
Yeah.
Especially with Dominic as well. We just don't feel safe with where photos go.
Yeah.
But there I was breaking that rule on their first week of being alive, signing media release forms. So that episode, I believe, will go to air in April.
Yeah.
And then we went through a total of 5.5 weeks of the girls being in the NICU. So they progressed quite quickly from being, I would think, they were born at 32 weeks in one day. By 35 weeks, we were trying bottles.
Wow.
And then it got to the point where they were having full feeds on bottles. And at that point, I think, again, it was like 40 mils of milk. So now in comparison, very small bottles. And we were getting ready to go home. The problem we had is we were waiting for RFDS to pick us up, take us to the Bundaberg Base Hospital, and then the girls would be there one night in the nursery, and then I was going to room in for 2 nights. Well, due to staff shortages, which is not an uncommon problem, I suppose anywhere at the moment with COVID, there were no beds. Mm-hmm. So what we decided in I'd say it was almost like a moment of madness, because when I look back at that weekend when we brought them home, I did things like I left my makeup in the bathroom at the hospital. I just was in such a frantic panic. I needed to get out of the hospital.
Tell us about that panic. Like, so it was this like drive within you to be at home, like that you'd had enough, or like why do you feel like that was coming up now after you'd been so patient for so long?
I know. Look, when I was discharged from hospital, I was discharged on day 6. So I had my Caesar discharge day 6, and then we were living in an apartment a kilometre away across the road from the hospital. I remember doing that walk across the bridge to the Muddy Hill car park to go to Quest and thinking, this is not right. Part of me broke. That I was leaving the girls there. But I had to keep telling myself that they were receiving the best care that I couldn't provide at that time. With the TPN going in, I believe that goes in close to their heart. At that point, they were just coming off CPAP. They still needed the isolates with the blue light.
But that's your mother instinct, like that's not a strange feeling. That's your intuition saying, like, these babies, I'm connected to them energetically. I need them with me.
I know.
That's not, And it is a strange, necessary, but strange setup to be estranged from your baby so young.
It is.
Because we're still animals. We still like have that innate desire to.
At that point, yes. At that point, I just had them, and it was very surreal that we actually got to get both of them. Hubby said we had less than a 1% chance in the end of them both coming through. I'm just going to grab Sophia and bring her over here because I don't want her to cry. And I guess the question you have about, what was that panic about? I was just always asking myself, when are we going to take them home? And the days were ticking by, and I was counting how long it had been since I'd been home. And it was a very snap decision that we were going to book commercial flights on QantasLink and bring them home ourselves. For me, it was more about the trauma of the day we brought them home was day 150 since I'd been home. So I guess...
And like, how much had you prepared for that moment mentally in your head?
No, I really wasn't prepared. I mean, for weeks and months when I was in hospital waiting for the girls to arrive, and we were told, Amelia had like a 3% chance she'd need home oxygen. And the girls come out, and within 4 days they're off CPAP and they're breathing by themselves. And, there was a lot of things we were told that could have happened, and none of that happened. Mm-hmm. And so my mind, I guess, was, and still is, trying to balance, what we were told could have happened and what I was preparing myself for, which was really the worst possible outcome. And then in many ways, I'm so incredibly thankful and grateful for what has happened, but I still find myself caught in those moments. I mean, you can see where my eyes are going when I'm thinking about this. So yeah, that feeling of being able to take them home, it felt like, I remember, so hubby had flown back. So he'd driven home on the Friday, left me by myself in the apartment, waiting to room in on the Saturday. That was a snap decision we made that morning within an hour. He was with the car ready to go home with Dominic, and he said, what do you want to do? And I said, you know what? we're going to take the plans into our own hands. And I guess I felt very empowered about that. But when I went into room in on the Saturday and did Saturday and Sunday night by myself, I did come across quite a few issues in that I was back on the same floor that I had spent 87 nights. I had the same conditions. I wasn't allowed to leave the floor. The same menu. And a friend of mine said, you know, I hope you don't find the menu too triggering. I remember bawling because it was the same food options that I'd had for so many days. And I think it's the attachment I put that I was, you know, those, we'll say 81 days waiting for the girls. Every day, every meal, it was, well, how many of these meals am I going to have to eat before I know that they're okay?
Yeah.
And at one point on the Saturday night,
it's like, this is, you know, we talk about this and like we can be logical adults and we can have this rational brain, but our body remembers everything that's ever happened. And so the response that you're having is bodily. It's a physical memory of a traumatic experience. No matter how well you handled it, it took an emotional toll. So to go back to that place, I mean, that's a bit of PTSD, isn't it? Like you kind of go.
It's hugely PTSD. And I remember on the Saturday night, it was 8:30. You know, we had the nurse would come around every 4 to 6 hours to bring the milk and do obs on the girls. And I was feeding Amelia, and I looked up to my right, and I saw the crucifix above the door. And I had the same level of lighting that I would have had when it was that time and I was an inpatient, and I freaked out.
Yeah.
I feel like I had, in that moment, I had some kind of panic attack or anxiety attack that, oh my God, I'm back in the room, and how long am I going to be here for?
And this is the thing that I think is so important, and I'm so grateful for you sharing, is you can be so grateful and happy for the positive outcome that happened, of course, but our body, if it's been living in this fight or flight state for so long and you are expecting a different reality, right? That's absolutely valid to feel like, yes, this is amazing and everyone's telling me it's amazing, but my body is stuck remembering this, what could have been. And that's like, let's just take a moment with that, because that's so okay, you know, because we are in a society where it's like, oh, they're good, you should be happy, you should be like joyful.
Well,
you
that's
know
what happened. You know, when we brought them home, all of a sudden I'm getting all these messages and phone calls, and people are saying to me, at least you're home now. You know, the girls are alive. And I remember our child health nurse coming to visit the girls the following week, and she said, it must be so good to be home, like at least you're home. And I said to her, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you've completely dismissed everything that I've gone through. Because to make a statement, and this is where I feel I'm struggling at the moment, is I keep being told, you know, yes, that happened, but you're here now, and you've got them both now, and they're 3 months old now. And, you know, it's that thing of, I do struggle with the fact that I want to vent and share the struggles emotionally and mentally that I'm experiencing, but then I feel like, well, hang on, I need to be grateful. So I find that is an awkward balance for me.
Yeah, and I think, like, let's not forget, you can be totally grateful and still have to process psychological things that have come up. Like, and this is where we get caught, right? We get this thing where it's like, you've got to be present, you've got to be present, you've got to be present, and we totally do. That is the only thing that exists. However, to get to a place where we feel calm and peaceful, we have to acknowledge what's come before, and that's where the work is. And this is what is so beautiful, to be able to share with other women who go through the same thing. Like, I have this great life. However, my body is reliving something that was deeply painful in this present moment. And I think, and that's where we call on our support, you know, as I'm sure you already have, but it's like, you know, that's where we go and see our psychologists, our psychotherapists. We do body work. Like that's been a huge factor for moving through some really hard things, is actually getting it out of the body, you know, like it's a stuck energy. And unless you've experienced it, it's really hard to know what to say to someone.
You're right, Carlie. It is really hard. But having said that, I mean, I saw on my phone in my health app, it said that I was doing around 80 steps a day for 3 months because I was walking to the bathroom. And then as soon as I'm discharged, I'm doing 6,000 steps a day. And I'm battling, you know, the recovery of a cesarean. We come home. I went from having telehealth psychology appointments to I wanted to see someone in person. And now I've actually had to cancel my psychology appointments because I can't do a telehealth appointment and share how I really am feeling openly and honestly with the children around.
Yeah.
And I can't go to physio appointments because I don't have the physical support to leave the children in care, because I did have some issues post Caesar where the internal knot where they started stitching was rubbing against scar tissue from the previous Caesar. So for me to, you know, have that kind of support at the moment where we're in, you know, this phase of COVID, where we do have COVID in Bundaberg, and we're saying no visitors now until March. So we've had no visitors since December, apart from, you know, the nurse that comes in. That's really hard. So I end up having these struggles, I guess, of mindset perspective and emotional perspective, where I don't feel like anyone quite understands what I've been through. I don't expect anyone to understand. And it's very isolating when you can't really share with anyone how you're feeling because you don't feel like anyone could connect. And with that theme of connection, I also feel incredibly detached from all three of the children. So because I had that bed rest in hospital, I missed out on caring for our son and then the girls. And even now, you know, I said before, I don't want Sophia to cry, but I don't actually feel anything within. 3 months on, I still feel very numb and detached and disconnected. So I'm waiting for a social worker to reach out to me to try and create some activities where that can be, you know, if it can be reinstilled. But there's a lot that
I also want you to acknowledge the fact that you are aware of this, Ellie. Like that is so far beyond where a lot of people get stuck. You're literally like, I am really open and honest about my situation right now, and I can see it for exactly what it is. Like, even though you're in it and it's so difficult, there is a part of you that can also oversee what's happening here.
Yeah, of course.
And that's pretty profound. That's pretty awesome, you know. And I think let's not discount how strong you are to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Because it's so easy to get stuck in the dark.
Yeah.
You're like, I know it's here.
It is. And I do have, you know, flashbacks. I go to sleep at night and I close my eyes and I can see myself, like if I were to open them, that I'm in that room. I'm looking at the chart on the wall, counting down to when they might arrive. I'm waiting for my Clexane. I'm waiting for my OBS train. You know, that's, you know, these are things that I guess as someone recovering from PTSD, I'm working through. And I really don't want those thoughts. I mean, I know when I saw you last, I came to level 10 and I did that as an exercise and was telling myself as I walked through those corridors, I had a positive experience. But be honest with you, and I've said this to many, when I was in hospital, I wanted to be out of hospital. And now that I'm out of hospital, I want to be readmitted. And I think that is something aligned with the fact that, you know, I do get support from my husband, but he works crazy hours. He's my rock. He's all that I have. We're not inviting anyone into the house. So, you know, for me to want to be back in hospital, it's about wanting to have the social worker, the OTs, you, the nurses, all of those people that I built a profound bond with, rapport with, who now aren't part of my life as much anymore, to be surrounded by that and feel that love and support.
And you know, Ellie, this is a big thing that I've spoken to a beautiful female obstetrician about how we're very good at getting you to the stage of having the baby, but then we fall down on the aftercare.
We do.
And so this is a great conversation to have, because it's like, well, what do we need postnatally to support us? Because ultimately what we want to do is get to a place where you feel secure enough in yourself to know that you got this, right? Like that's the place. But what in your opinion of being on this side now, what do you need to come to that place?
I wish I had the answer. I really do. I know what I need to do, and that's to move forward. It's to, like you said before, focus on the now and the next day. But how do I do that and shut out what I had to go through to get to this point?
Well, you know, I mean, I know nothing in the scheme of things, but I guess everything in my own experience, right?
Yeah.
And what I found is that, and this is ongoing for me as well, this PTSD stuff, that the only way is through, and that the more we try and shut things out, the bigger they become.
Yeah, that's true. It's like holding a ball underwater.
Yeah. And that it's actually a practice. And it's a practice that takes time, but it's literally like, I'm going to show up for myself every day, and I'm going to sit with myself when I get a moment, and I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm just going to be. And when the yuck stuff comes up, when the hard things come up, when I want to move and escape that feeling and shut it down, that I see if I can just sit 1 minute longer. And if you consistently show up and do that for yourself, you actually start to have more capacity to detach from the overwhelm.
Yeah.
And that's like, and that's like I said, it's an ongoing practice for me. Like, there's, when we're not living in alignment, or we're living in a life that we didn't expect. And I think that's a big thing.
That's exactly what it is. I didn't expect.
Essentially you expected things to be wrong with your girls, you know, long term.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you were told. And so even though you got this beautiful outcome where, you know, it's turned out so positively, you have to adjust to that. That's grief work.
It's true. And, you know, I keep being asked, how did I get through those months in hospital? And I had like an epiphany last week. It's because I had routine, but they were creative routines. So as you know, well, for me, it was, you know, scans on Monday, Tuesday cooking, Wednesday with you, Thursday with the other mum. So what I'm now doing, I guess, which I feel this is going to help me, is I'm implementing a creative routine for my Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Mondays I'm spending on Oz Now Radio. And when I say spending, it's when the girls are asleep.
Yeah.
So for me, I've learned that I recharge through being creative. I don't recharge through having a nap, and I can't switch off to have a nap.
Yeah.
I've just registered a new business. So on Tuesdays, I'll be spending time on that creative business, which will launch in April. And then Wednesdays, it's putting together my own podcast and YouTube series.
Right.
So if we have appointments, I'm happy to accept that time needs to be dedicated there, because admittedly with the girls being prem, there are extra appointments we need to attend. But, at the same time, I'm excited to think tomorrow what I'll be doing for about an hour, Wednesday, to give myself that opportunity, I guess, to work through my feelings while being creative.
And it's so, what you say is so good, because it's literally like you have to create the moments of light for them to expand. You have to, even if like just on this day, you're like, there is only one tiny moment of light, but I'm going to focus on that. Because what you focus on grows, right? And
of course.
It doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean downplaying everything that's happened to you. But the more light we see, the more we can look at the things that are difficult from a little bit of separation perspective, right? And that's when we can do the healing. But a lot of people are dissociated, and you said that I feel a bit disconnected from my children. And again, that's I don't know how many times I've heard that from women, on the podcast and like just in person, being like, I felt like something was wrong with me because I didn't connect with my child straight away. And I'm like, hey, I totally agree. My child was taken away as well. He was on CPAP. You miss that initial like on your chest kind of experience. And yeah, it does have some profound effect on connection. So, and it's not to say you can't connect, but yeah, you've got to work harder, because we've gone from birthing, naturally, or like how whatever for so long, to all of a sudden having all these people saying this, and this, and it creates within us this kind of fear.
It does. It creates a lot of anxiety. I've had to shut out so many people who, I once called friends, because what they're saying, they don't have bad intentions, Carlie.
No.
Maybe they just don't know what to say. And then what they do say really upsets me. So, in many ways, like I say, I feel very lonely, but then I don't really want people around. I have learned as well that I just don't have time for people to be in my space, except for the 5 of us. Yeah. I guess because we had 5 months apart. Now I just want to make up for lost time and have as much family time as I can.
Yeah. And I think it's so okay to do that, and also be aware that you're in a very sensitive time period right now, and that you won't always feel like this. And so it's that thing of like taking space, of course, but being aware of not completely shutting people out. Because I think this is the thing, in those first 12 months of having a baby, I don't know if you remember with Dominique, like you're a different person. Like you literally, things bother you that never used to bother you. You're worrying and obsessing about stuff that you're like, hey, I don't actually really care about that, but I've got all these hormones and this like need to protect, and so I want to go in. Like it is very normal, but it's also just a moment in time. And I think it's like it also sounds like there's a bit of a spiritual crisis that's going on. It's often when we feel like we want to disconnect from everybody because they don't get us, it's because we're going to a different place in our awakening. And
so true.
Yeah, and I've got a beautiful book that I can recommend. It's actually an audiobook, so it's perfect. You can just listen. But it's called Spiritual Madness by Carlie and I, and she's incredible. She's a intuitive medic, but she's also a mystic, and she really talks to you really directly in a really Chicago accent. But she's like, spiritual madness is a thing. It's actually this crisis point where you've come to this awakening, usually through a really difficult period in your life.
Yeah.
And you start to go, nothing fits, nothing feels right, nothing makes sense anymore. And it's because you're actually leveling up. And to hear it in that perspective just gives you a little bit of like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy,
No.
This is actually a growth stage. I'm going through a growth, and to grow, we have to face the stuff that hurts us the most in order to be able to let it go.
True.
Otherwise, how do you? If you don't ever experience the hard stuff, it's never in your consciousness to let go, right?
Yeah, and I've been told that if you sit with trauma for 6 months, it effectively becomes long-term trauma. So I'm at that. I mean, I'm at that point now. I don't want long-term trauma. So, I'm finding creative activities where I can sit and channel, self-loving energy through it.
I love
Just
that.
gentle with myself. And even I discovered when you talk about spiritual enlightenment, there was a statement I always told myself when I was in hospital, and it was, worrying will not change the outcome. And last week, when I did like a 3 a.m. feed, I put that into Google and it came up with some Buddhist teachings. And I remember listening to the Dalai Lama when I was in hospital and feeling like really connected.
Yeah.
So I guess it is, for me, I'm learning more about myself now that I'm back in the wild than when I was captive.
Which is actually beautiful. It's painful. It's actually the most painful experience of your life.
It really is.
But I can tell you from someone who's been through and still to a degree going through, the light at the hero's journey is essentially what you're on right now. We call it the hero's journey. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's like you're getting the call up, and we get the call. Everyone gets the call, and you can ignore it so many times. Some people ignore it for life, but other people go, all right, I'm going to pick up that phone. Yeah. And once you pick up the phone, you have to go on a journey where it feels like it's just you. You become aware that no one else can save you. It's literally like I have to really dig deep and go into the forest with my sword and I'll see you at the light. I will come back. I'll be stronger than ever. And that's what all our fairy tales, maybe not the Disney versions, but all the fairy tales and the Greek mythology, it's all about that. It's about, we get this call to do this journey.
Yeah, we do.
For ourselves.
That's exactly how I feel. I mean, I feel like I do get asked that question, what can I do to help? And I keep saying, no one can do anything for me. I have to do it.
Yeah. And obviously, you know that you don't have to do it all alone. Like teachers will drop in when you need them. I think that's the other beautiful remembering. But yeah, ultimately you're so right. Like it's like this is my journey. Every single human gets a moment to have their journey. And often we don't want anyone to view it. Like I don't want you to see me. I'm going in. And the reason I guess why this work's so important is because motherhood is such a beautiful in for so many women.
It is. I'm hoping with time, I'm not going to put time on it, but with time I'll realise that beauty as well, because I can't say, I'd put a post up on Facebook about my loss of identity, and it was nothing to do with being a mum. But someone commented and said, aren't you thrilled to be a mum? Me being unable to have children, I would have cleaned toilets to have them, or something like that. And one of my friends from the NICU jumped on and gave her a serving and said, Ellie's not talking about her becoming a mum. I was talking about the feelings and frustrations associated with me going from having what I called an empire of a business and success to now where I'm sought out and needed is by my children. But that was a separate conversation. It actually got me banned off of Facebook.
Oh, really?
Someone reported. Obviously, we talk about things and they could be triggering, and somehow now I have no Facebook accounts, and it means I have no access to my business pages, my podcast pages, and it adds to the isolation.
Of course.
But again, it's you know, I recognize and I acknowledge that what I'm going through, only I can understand. Not even my husband can understand it. He's got his trauma.
Yes.
You know, and so I need to work through it in whichever way I see fit.
Yes, you do. Do you have you heard of the term matrescence?
Say that again?
Have you heard of the term matrescence?
No, I haven't.
Or matrescence? It's basically when a woman becomes a mother, she goes through what feels like adolescence again. It's like you go from like understanding who you are as a child, and then all of a sudden going through like adolescence, where I know, like I remember adolescence being the most confusing time of my life. Like, who am I? What is this body that's come? Like, what are these things? And like, how am I interacting with people, and what do I care about? And it's actually, there's a lot of research and literature on it. And there's a beautiful book by Amy Taylor Kabaz. She writes on it called Mother Rising, I think, or Mama Rising. And that whole thing, what you're going through is an actual thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's unique for everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
True. But collectively, if we talk about it more, and we can be like, hey, me too, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah. And I'm not going to dumb it down, and I'm not going to sweep it under the carpet and pretend that it's not a thing. I'm going to own it. And I'm going to say, hey, like, yeah, I've been through some stuff and it was difficult. And right now you're sitting in the dark night. We call it the dark night of the soul, you know, and it's a very, there is no way to get out of it except sitting in it, which is exactly what you're doing. And but I just, like, if I can help in any way, it's to stand here in solidarity and be like, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through in terms of, like, not specifically your things, but that dark night where you feel like there is no light and that it's just hard. It's just hard. And it's literally finding those tiny moments, which I know you're doing with the creativity stuff and the projects, or even when a baby smiles, even if you don't feel it, if you can capture it and say to yourself, I'm going to remember this as a marker for how far I'm going to go from here. It's seriously, you're literally retraining your inner child to connect back with you so that you're whole. You know, and I can see it, that you're like committed to doing this.
I mean, you're right about things like when they smile, when they've been smiling for the past 3 weeks. And to me, that's the greatest gift, because it does spark something within me. It sparks joy. And that's, you know, what I do try to focus on is, you know, I suppose the moments that I can really try to bond with them. Speaking with them and seeing that light of recognition that looks like they're really trying to understand. But I've got a lot of work to do on my own self. You know, because it's the thing I said the other day, I do feel very angry with myself. And that anger is to do with the fact that I can't just let go. But, you know, I've asked that question, how long am I going to be processing what I'm feeling? And there's no answer. I'll process it for as long as I need to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like that, I have the same question. How long till I can let go? How long till I can let go? But it's kind of like, as soon as we start asking that question, we're not letting go.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and we start punishing ourselves and then adding more to that, like, thing of like, oh God, so now I can't even let go. Like, I'm a terrible person. And it's such a difficult and tricky journey to navigate. Sitting with ourselves. And like, you're just brave. Can I just say that? And I want you to hear that, because not everyone will sit and do this. They'll distract. Distract, distract, distract. People distract themselves all over the world all the time. Drugs, alcohol, shopping, excessive TV, work, whatever it is. Distract, distract, distract.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've made a choice, that you're like, because we all have a choice.
We do.
Even though we feel like we don't.
We do. And sometimes, I think I get stuck on wanting solutions rather than considering what choices I have.
And that's based on our society, right?
Yeah.
We're solutions based. We don't have time to sit in circle and be.
No. And that's where I do question, Carlie, whether, this time I'm going to be dedicated to being creative. Is it really going to be me sitting with my feelings? In many ways, I'm going to be distracting myself. But I think also it's healthy to have some time in every day because I don't get a break. I asked one of my best friends recently, she's just gone back to work after having her son. And we're talking like, 10 months down the track. And I said, what's it like being back at work? And she said, oh, it's like having a break. And it was in that moment that I realised, when we had Dominic, I haven't clocked off. Hubby can go to work and have adult interaction at work and conversations and see people, and I don't have that. There's been a lot of talk around, what's pampering for a mum, because there's a lot of push for me to spend time doing things that bring me joy, and the suggestion that getting my hair done is a luxury. No, it's not. I did say to a friend the other day that what would be an absolute pamper day for me is all of the kids are looked after, and I can go and audit a business on their processes and policies. And they said, but that's not a day off. And I said, well, for me it is. I would be reconnecting with a different part of my brain. And I think that's why the creative routine is going to be so important for me, to be using the skills that I have professionally. And that in itself is not me. Maybe it isn't distracting myself from what I'm feeling, but it's repurposing my focus.
Look, I think when I say distraction, I mean distraction if you're going to a job that you don't care about, but you're just going and you're turning up. The key word you said was creativity, right? And creativity breeds space for us to have an outlet. And also, if it brings you joy, which you said it does, then only from a joyful and calm space can we look at our pattern.
True.
When you're in it, you can't. Like, I've done so much work on myself, yet when I have an overwhelming anxious period, it's so difficult to remember that it's not real, that it's a moment, that it's a remembering, that it's a bodily response, because you're in it. So yeah, I think don't ever think that creativity is the key.
I think so.
And like you said, it's like, we crave that time where we can be without our children because it's doing something for ourselves.
Yeah, of course it is. How many times I've been told that I need to make sure that my cup is full so I can provide for everyone around me. How do you do that in a situation when you don't get that time to recharge? And that's where I've been reading Michael Dixon's book, Everyday Creative. And, even though I'm not in a professional workspace, I'm finding what he shares in that book so instrumental to me implementing change, to allow myself to be creative, to allow myself to find ways that I can be, I think what I'm trying to say is to do with my quality of parenting. I want to be creative so that I then have, I don't want these children growing up thinking, well, all mum did was complain about how hard it was to have us. All mum did was show that she was emotionally broken because of what she has been through. I want them to look back and go, you know, mum sparks joy in my life. For me to do that, I need to spark joy in my own.
100%. And forgiveness is such a big part of that.
It is.
Forgiving yourself.
Yeah, it is.
And it's one of those practices. It's not something to just be like, oh yeah, no, I forgive myself. It's like every day I sit with myself and I say out loud, I forgive myself for wanting more.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy that we need to address the guilt around being a mum and wanting more in life?
But that's because it's not ours. It's because it's a societal condition.
True, but that was the problem with that comment that was made on Facebook. It was that because I'm a mum, that should be enough. And it's like that Instagram trend. It's never enough. It's never enough. But I do want to thank you, Carlie, because it was through your creative workshops that I reignited the spark around being physically creative.
Doing something with your hands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we do it. You know, like it can seem frivolous to people that are like, I'm not creative, I don't want to do that. It's like, yeah, you can see it at that surface level for sure, 100%. But only until you sit down and you actually do something with your hands do you get out of your mind.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
It's so simple, right?
During your classes, like I didn't even want to entertain any other thoughts. My thoughts were consumed by the colors in front of me and the textures and learning, creating something.
Yeah, that's so. Thank you, Ellie, for saying that, because I think coming from people that have done it, that's the whole point, you know. And we need to continue that after we have a baby. And like, thank you for reminding me, because here I am with this thing where this is what I do, but do I leave time for myself to do it? You know, no, you know. But like for me, it's like also moving my body's become a big thing. Like actually just literally getting outside and like just seeing what it can do, because that's where so much stuff is stored. Like I'm not moving my body to be fit. Like it's a nice thing that happens, but I'm moving my body because there's energy stuck in there that I can't take out. You know, it needs to express itself out physically. And yeah, that's why that's part of everything, isn't it? That creative, that physical, that spiritual, like that's the whole journey. And I think the bigger thing is understanding that there is a power bigger than ourselves, you know. And I think that was such an instrumental puzzle piece that had to drop into me, because even though I grew up in a kind of a Catholic, like a loose Catholic family, but I worked at Catholic schools and I've been to Catholic schooling, I had a real issue with God. I had a real issue with even saying God, you know, because I was like, that's like the indoctrination of it just made me so angry, right? And so, but I then realized that was a block within me.
Yeah.
Stopping me, it was that I had this idea of something that had been created for me by someone else, as opposed to this idea of like, hey, there is definitely some universal forces out there that are like
there is, and it's funny that you bring this up, because I've said in the last week that the universe is conspiring against me. How many times I've said, you know, I just like an hour to myself. I remember the first week that hubby went back to work on that Friday, I said to Dominic, I said, thank goodness Daddy is home in a few hours, because it'd be my 4th day with all 3 kids. You just need a break. And then he rang me on the way home to tell me, I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm going to be able to be around you for very much. I need to isolate. And then I had 5 nights all by myself with all the kids. I wonder sometimes. I've been very big on focusing on, having like a vision board for every year. And
Yeah.
I know with manifestation, you have to do the actions to get the results. It's not just a matter of thinking something's going to happen. But just lately, I've felt really challenged because the things that I've needed, the universe has been pushing back. And whether that's something in myself that I need to, it's part of, like you say, the hero's journey. It's part of this time where I'm sitting with my feelings. And you're right, that's exactly what psychologist said before I left Brisbane. She said you need to feel everything. And it's okay to walk around crying. It's okay to sit and wallow. But I want to reach this point where, and I think I will, through being creative, that I'll see there are bigger things to focus on.
And I want to flip this because, I totally understand the universe conspiring against you, but I wholly believe that the universe only ever has your best intentions.
Yes,
even though it feels like shit, that it's actually like, no, Ellie, you're on this.
Well, that's the thing, like that week of ISO, if anything, conditioned me. And I said to hubby the other day, I feel like I'm fitter than I was first pregnancy because, I had to bath all the kids myself, shower Dom myself, did everything 24/7 for six continual days. And it just gave me a certain resilience, I guess. So you're right. I mean, there's so many different ways you can look at how things happen in the world, but
look, I've had like a super low point and like so many shitty things happened at once, but I was able to see like the grander cosmos from it, and even in like I'm crying and I'm like breaking down and I'm like, thank you universe, because like it's like it just boom gave me the messaging that I needed, whether not always positive.
No, it's not always positive.
It gave me the hard reality that I needed to step forward in that moment.
But that's the thing, when you're challenged, when the universe throws something your way and you have to step up, I look back on that week and I'm proud of myself for what I was able to do. 3 kids aged 2 and under by myself, and I've got friends messaging saying, oh, I hope you've got help and that way you can, it's just like pamper yourself. I don't have any help. Today we found a nanny. So this afternoon when I pick Dominic up from his first day at school, she'll look after the girls for an hour while I pick him up. That for me is such an independent moment to think I can just hop in the car and go and pick him up, have some time with him. So, things are going to start turning around.
Yeah.
I'm confident. This is the week that I implement my creative routines. So I woke up with a burst of energy today, very different to every other morning in the past 3 months.
And like, let's just pause and reflect. Tell me a time where you've grown without it being a difficult, like, do we grow that much when we're just in this like, oh, everything's good, blah, blah, blah? No, well,
we don't grow without challenge.
Correct. And I think what is like, what I kind of giggle now, even though I've just had a lot of anxiety come up, that it's sort of like, yeah, the more we sit with every feeling, as your psychologist said, the more we feel the lighter ones so much more beautifully as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, Ellie, like I probably cry in the car every day. Like, like I'm sitting here and, there's a perception of who I am and like, oh yeah, she's happy, she does this thing and blah, blah. Yeah, she's got it together. And I'm like, I do have it together, but I also am a human, and being a human feels so intense, especially if you have dissociated from your feelings like I had for a good 34 years. So now all of a sudden this feeling, every feeling sometimes reminds me of being a child, where the feelings are so big and you just don't know if they're ever going to end.
Yeah, and you don't know how to process, or
No.
it's overwhelming.
And I have so much empathy for my son now when he loses the plot and has these big tantrums. And I think, you're not being bad. You just literally feel like your world is ending right now because you do not have the capacity to see outside.
Yeah, and trying to work his way through. I see the same with Dominic. He's very intense, and if he can't get the lid off of a texter, he's very frustrated. And I think, oh, look at that determination. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a huge challenge for him. And I think, well, how would I have felt at that age? Like, it takes you back to your own childhood.
Yeah. And actually, everything we're going through now as adults, the big feelings,
Yeah.
more often than not, and like, this is work with a psychologist, but it'll remind you of something in childhood.
Yeah, of course it will.
Like nothing, all the big stuff, the big feelings, they're from something before, where we didn't have the capacity to process. Yeah. And so we're still stuck in that programming.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can sit here as like someone who's learned to adult themselves and be like, yeah, I got it together, but I'll still be triggered by school.
Yeah, of course.
Working in a school, going back to work triggers me because it reminds me when I was at school and I thought I got left behind.
Right.
So like I just want to say this because that seems so simple and so trivial.
Yeah, but it's not, because then, like, that that's brought up memories for me of one time that we'd gone to Target and I'd lost my mum, and standing at that desk and the woman calling out, if someone's lost a little girl, like, it's that thing of the feelings that we felt at the time. And I guess this really relates to when I was in hospital. Things happened and I didn't have the ability to process those emotions. And as children, I just think how much emotional intelligence we have at that point to be able to process. So, things do come up.
Yeah. Ellie, I just think, like, I just know that you're on the right path.
Thank you.
Like, yeah, it's hard and it's shitty and it feels like you're not getting anywhere some days, but like the fact that you're sitting here and you're talking about it, you're on the right path.
And I think it's even just measuring success in different ways. I mean, today I've stripped both the beds and the girls' cots. The dishes, there's no dishes in my sink. I've emptied the nappy bin. It's little things like that which I've achieved. My next big mission is to clear up all the toys that are all over the floor in the living room. It's just what used to be achievements for me and success were writing policies and procedures and training and mentoring people. And now I measure them in, okay, I've washed the bottles, I've changed nappies. That's a win.
Yeah. We got to start again. And like, we forget, like we think, oh yeah, we've got this kid, I got it, I'm an adult. And it's like, no, you've got no clue. You got to start again. And it's small practices. It's like sitting with yourself every day. It's small practices consistently every day.
I saw an Instagram reel of a mum where she got her toddler to sleep, and the dance she did out of the bedroom. I do that every day.
Yeah.
He has his afternoon nap. I literally dance away from his bedroom. It's like there's another moment of success.
Yes.
So it's kind of reshaping what used to bring me joy and taking it from the corporate professional world and translating it to parenting.
It's a different kind of inner strength.
It's different.
But like the fact that you're like, hey, I did 5 days on my own and I'm proud of myself, like that's the strength that we want. That is going to carry everywhere.
It is hard though to keep feeling proud of myself and strength, to look back and go, well, that was really brave of me I'm very strong, I'm resilient. When I had a lot of people message me and tell me that they'd been through the same thing. I had someone message me and say, "Hun, I know what you're going through. I had 3 kids in 2.5 years. You know what? Did, do you have 3 kids, 2 and under? Did you have them during the pandemic? Did you have to go through IVF? Did you have a 14, 15-year journey of infertility? You know, there's a lot of stuff there." And so that's where, again, I acknowledge no one will know how I feel. Only I do.
Yeah.
And that in itself is quite profound.
100%. And the thing is, people are always going to compare.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You don't have to. You can.
No, I don't.
Stop that. And when people, and this is, I think this is the other thing, you know, you've mentioned a few times, you know, people saying things and projecting their own stuff onto you.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to own it.
No, it's not my stuff to own.
So yeah, thanks for that.
A friend of mine said that if you can picture above everyone's head is a bubble of consciousness. And he said some will have huge bubbles and some will be the size of, you know, say a 50-cent piece. So when people are projecting onto you, you know, whatever they're sharing with you is only from whatever consciousness they have.
Mm.
And I like that because it changed the way I looked at things when people would say, "Oh, I know what you're feeling," or "I understand how you feel." Well, they can say that, but they're coming from, you know, a 5-cent piece of consciousness.
Mm. Well, we don't know. You don't know.
You don't know, but...
And that's yeah, I get it. But I think the thing is that what will happen is the further you go along on your journey, the more, I call them ego deaths, you'll have, where you think you'll have it worked out. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. But it's good because you then level up. Like every time you have an ego death, you're like, oh, wow, I was thinking at this level. Like,
this is, yeah. And I did say that to hubby. I said, you know, everything we go through is preparing you for something greater. And I said last year when we came home in December, I said, like, you know, this has just made me stronger for the next hurdle was really that week of ISO. Where I thought, like, this can't get much harder, and it did. And it, you know, I guess I'm ready for the next challenge whenever that happens.
You call it in, you create your reality. That's the weird thing.
I'd like a bit of a break. Let me sit with this for the moment.
Yeah, you can say that. You know what? I think it would be really nice to check in with you again in another 3 months if you're open.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Let's see this journey through.
There was, I'm really big on Instagram Reels at the moment. I spend a lot of time, and I saw one last night, and it was a pre-recorded audio which said, whatever today's date is, in 2 months from now, you're going to be in a better place. So I feel like I'm here now with you, Carlie, looking forward to the next 3 months, knowing if I think that I'm strong today and I'm resilient and I'm proud of what I've achieved and what I'm working through, I'll feel even more of that in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's what my hope is.
And look, even if, you know, I think the thing to remember is you can never go backwards. It's always going to be different. You can never go exactly back to where you were. So there will be growth for sure.
So I'm laughing because while I'm saying this, Sophia is giving me the biggest gummy laugh.
Aww, she knows.
She knows. Well, that, and I also know what I can smell, so.
But you know what? Babies are clever and they read energy, and they've been calm this whole time, Ellie. So even though it might feel like there's a lot of turmoil going on inside, you're obviously projecting a safe energy for them. Yeah. It's been a pleasure again.
Thank you, Carlie.
I am proud of you. I think you're doing an incredible job, as incredibly difficult as it is.
And thank you for giving me the space to share as well. I always feel very safe sharing with you.
Oh, good. That's a big honor. Okay, well, we will see you again in 3 months.
I look forward to it.
Oh, me too. Bye, Ellie.
Bye.